So my name is Jitendra Sharma and I'm an International Student Advisor at SFU. I'm joined today by my lovely colleague, Aska. Aska is also International Student Advisor, Immigration Specialist at SFU, and she has kindly offered to moderate our session today. Given the current context here in Canada, it is more, sorry. So here you will see a brief outline of topics I will go through today in our presentation. I will begin with a short introduction of International Services for Students Office, where we have the honor and privilege of working with interact with one another. I feel it is important to outline the enrollment requirement, particularly as it pertains to study permit, work eligibility, postgraduate work permit, etc. After reviewing this, we will arrive at the post-graduation work permit, work eligibility, application process, etc. We will then discuss work eligibility during the transition to PGWP and then highlight several COVID-19 policies that impacts you and that you might want to consider when applying for PGWP. We will then take rest of the time today to address any question for you. The session today will go until 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. Due to evolving nature of COVID-19 pandemic, we have witnessed many changes that take place very rapidly. Thus, some of the information that I will be sharing today may change. The information we share today is current as of today to best of our knowledge, which for those who if you're watching will be recording is July 21st, 2022. At ISS, we offer a range of services to support your transition to SFU as international student. You can see a list of services and support we offer to SFU student on this slide. As an advisor, we provide non-academic advising, which includes advising information about your temporary immigration status in Canada, for example, study permit, work permit, etc., medical insurance. In addition, our team can offer advice on medical insurance and navigating the Canadian health care system. There are various options for you to connect with an ISA. This include both in-person and virtual options such as live chat, booked and drop-in appointments, email, and phone. We understand that this is a very difficult time and many students are not able to travel to Canada or don't feel comfortable meeting in person. We also understand that different students may have different comfort level with accessing in-person services like advising. So we want to know that we take all that into consideration and we offer our services both in person and virtually. Our website is also a great resource. It includes instruction guide on how to apply or extend your study permit, immigration documents like work permit, etc. These resources are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we always recommend that you refer to these self-guided resources as a first step to get your question answered. That's us, and that's what we do. Let's move along now to look at the enrollment requirement for international students. As immigration rules and policies do not exist in a vacuum, and because these policies often interact with each other, let's look at the enrollment requirement for international students and the work eligibility requirement for students at SFU, which includes the most common type of work our students engage in, that is on campus, off campus, and work that is essential part of your study program, that is co-op. Your enrollment at SFU affects your ability to work, study, or stay in Canada. After completing your study permit has condition attached to it which you need to comply with during your stay in Canada. You are also required to meet a set of eligibility criteria in order to work while you study. If you're planning to apply for postgraduate work permit after you finish your program, you must additionally meet the eligibility criteria under the PGWP program. As an international student who is holding a study permit, you are required to actively pursue your studies. What does that mean? That means that you must remain enrolled and make reasonable progress towards completing your program. To be considered actively pursuing studies, you are required to enroll in a full-time or occasionally part-time course load. If you would like to review the full-time definition of SFU, you can find that on our website. While you may have academic or program specific criteria which require you to study on a full-time basis, you are not required to study full-time each term to comply with your study permit condition. If students need to take time away from their studies, IRCC state that they can take leave of absence from a program of study that should not exceed 150 days, and leave must be authorized by the school, in this case, SFU. With all this being said, as we will see shortly, your enrollment can impact your ability to work in Canada and your eligibility to apply for postgraduate work permit. So there are different type of work you can pursue while you are a student at SFU. You may work on campus, off campus, and an SFU approved co-op internship while you are with us. The requirements for each are different, and so you will see your your enrollment impacts your ability to work on and off campus under your study permit. Generally speaking, students are required to study full-time in the term they wish to work and meet IRCC work eligibility criteria as outlined in this slide in order to work on and off campus under their study permit. Off-campus work is restricted to up to 20 hours per week during regular academic terms. However, eligible students may work full-time during a regularly scheduled work during their studies. The designated regularly scheduled breaks at SFU are different for undergrads and graduate at SFU. For undergrad students, the reading week breaks between terms and summer term may be considered regularly scheduled break for immigration purpose. For graduate students, the reading week breaks between terms are considered regularly scheduled breaks for immigration purpose. For some programs, there might be academic break in the curriculum, which may also be considered regularly scheduled break. In order to be eligible to work full-time during a regularly scheduled break, students must hold full-time enrollment in the academic term prior and to the following the break. If students are pursuing SFU required and approved co-op, internship, or practicum, then this is a different type of work that would be performed under a co-op work permit. Note that for all these type of work, you must also have valid social insurance number or SIN. Undergrad and graduate student enrolled in full-time cooperative education as per program requirement are considered to be studying full-time in the term which they are pursuing their co-op. So PGWP program is another area where we see student enrollment impacting eligibility to work. Under the PGWP program, students are required to maintain full-time status during each academic term of their studies. For undergrad students, that basically means you are required to be full-time in spring and fall, as that is a requirement of SFU. The summer term is optional in terms of enrollment and may be considered regularly scheduled break as mentioned earlier. This means that SFU undergrad students may enroll part-time, take the term off in the summer without negatively impacting their eligibility for postgraduate work permit. For graduate students, full-time enrollment in spring, summer, and fall is required to maintain eligibility for work permit. IRCC notes that possible exception could be made to full-time requirement during a period of authorized leave or final term of study. As mentioned here, in addition to maintaining a full-time study for the duration of their program, students must also meet other PGWP criteria. We will now move along now to look closer at those criteria. Full-time international students may be eligible to apply for PGWP upon completion of their program. The PGWP is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, means you can only apply for PGP only once in your lifetime. So for example, if you complete an undergrad program, and then you apply for PGWP, and after that you decide to go for a master's degree or graduate degree, you will not be able to apply for PGWP upon completion of your graduate degree. So in case you have planned to pursue higher education after your undergrad, please think about when it is the best time for you to apply for your post-graduation work permit. In the advanced question, many students ask when is the best time to apply for PGWP. IRCC state that students must apply for PGWP within 180 days of completing their program of studies. We recommend that you begin counting the 180 days from the days your thesis grade is made available in SFU, in case your program is a thesis program, or the final grade deadline for your final term of studies for non-thesis programs. It is important to note that the date on your convocation ceremony has nothing to do with 180 days application period for postgraduate work permit. To be eligible for postgraduate work permit, you must complete a program at designated learning institute like SFU that was 8 months or longer and that led to degree, diploma, or certificate. As mentioned earlier, you must also maintain a full-time status as a student in Canada during each academic term of your program. For recap, SFU undergrad students, full-time enrollment is required for each spring and fall. For graduate student, full-time enrollment is required for spring, summer, and fall term. We would encourage you that you review the full eligibility criteria under the PGWP program by visiting the IRCC website, as mentioned in the link on this slide, and we will also share the link with you in the email later. So in most cases, you can apply for your postgraduate work permit online, and this can be done at the IRCC website at www.canada.ca. In fact, IRCC has been advocating that all the temporary resident applications should be submitted online unless you have a reason that you're unable to apply online. If you are in Canada, you can submit your PGWP in Canada. You may also apply for PGWP from outside Canada. I understand that some of you might have confusion that is it only possible to apply for PGWP from Canada? That is not true. You can apply from it from inside or outside Canada. The application fee for postgraduate work permit application is $255, $155 towards work permit, and $100 toward open work permit fee. There's also additional $85 for biometrics. Now, how long does the application take to process? So as of today, the processing time for postgraduate work permit application from inside Canada is 159 days. For outside Canada, the processing time would differ depending upon your country of nationality. Here we have listed some of the documents that you would need when applying for your postgraduate work permit as an in-Canada application. This is not an exhaustive list of requirements, and you may want to include additional documents specific to your case in your postgraduate work permit application. As an example, if you'll be working in occupation in which the production of public health is required, which brings you into close contact with people, you may be required to submit medical examination as part of your application. Outside Canada PGWP applicants, you will also likely notice some differences in the requirement, both in regards to required application forms and supporting documents. We recommend that outside Canada application consult with country-specific requirement for the responsible visa office to confirm requirement. These can be found on the IRCC website. You will need to include proof of program completion at SFU, that is your credential completion letter or Senate letter, and a final transcript in both in Canada and outside Canada application. Some of you have asked in the registration question whether you can apply for PGWP on your own or if you need help of some consultant for the application. Now, this is a matter of personal preference. Our team of international student advisor, immigration specialists like Aska or me, and all of our other team members are here to support you if you have questions about your application or if you would like to discuss what is the best approach for you to submit your application. You may also choose to work with authorized representative like immigration consultant or immigration lawyer if this is your preference. My suggestion would be start by reaching out to us and we can guide you further. Now, I understand that some of you might be concerned about the length of the postgraduate work permit. So PGWP is issued based on the official length of program of study completed to maximum of 3 years. Study program must be minimum of 8 months to be eligible for postgraduate work permit application. If you complete your program that is between 8 months and 2 years in duration, IRCC may issue PGWP that is valid for the same length as your program. As an example, if you complete a 1-year study program, you may be eligible for 1 year of work permit. If the official length of your program of study is 2 years or more, a 3 years work permit may be issued. I too want to emphasize that IRCC make the final determination with regards to the duration of your postgraduate work permit. As an ISA, we are unable to confirm or guarantee the duration of your work permit that you would be qualified for. IRCC also has language in their program delivery instruction about program of study with the duration of 16 to 23 months in relation to PGWP validity, which I will share you in the next slide. So officer may issue 3 years of work permits to individual who complete a master's or doctoral degree in Canada when the eligible DLI has confirmed in the confirmation that the degree is 16 to 23 months in length and does not include regularly scheduled break. So for example, if you are doing a master's in professional computer science, that is a 16 months program. That is a continuous program without any break. So basically you are taking 4 semesters. So if you compare that to an undergrad degree, so that normally considered a scheduled break. So fall, summer, and springs, because you are continuously studying for 4 semesters, it is still considered to be equivalent 2 years program, and hence you may qualify for 3 years of work permit. So you can apply for PGWP from inside Canada as long as you are eligible. You must apply within 180 days of completing your program at SFU. For in-Canada application, your study permit must have been valid at some point during those 180 days. Under the IRCC rules, your study permit becomes invalid 90 days after you complete your program of study or on the expiry date printed on the permit, whichever comes first. It is important to be mindful of this if you will be applying for PGWP in Canada. If you will be applying for PGWP from inside Canada, it is also important to note some valid immigration status at the time you submit your application. If you are in a situation where you are in Canada and your study permit will expire or become invalid before you submit your application, you have a few options. If you are still within your final term of study, you can submit an application to extend your study permit for an additional 90 days. This is often referred to as bridging extension of your study permit. This should give you sufficient time to finish your program and obtain the necessary paperwork from SFU to apply for your work permit. In this case, you may receive the necessary document from SFU to apply for PGWP before your study permit extension is approved, but after your current study permit has expired. In this situation, you will still be allowed to apply for postgraduate work permit, but you would be holding a maintained status. This is because your new study permit has not approved, but your current study permit has expired. In this case, if you apply for your postgraduate work permit under a maintained status, you will unfortunately not be eligible to work upon submission of your application, which we will discuss in the next few slides. Finally, if your study permit expiring after you finish your studies, but before you would be able to submit your application, you would need to change your status to visitor in order to remain in Canada. To do so, you would apply online for a visitor record before your study permit expires or becomes invalid. In this scenario, you can remain in Canada and submit your postgraduate work permit application while holding a maintained status. It is also possible to apply for postgraduate work permit from outside Canada, and currently we do not have many of our students pursuing that option. If you are completing your studies from outside of Canada, you can apply for work permit from where are you, as long as you are eligible for work permit and you have approved for a study permit. You don't have to have a valid study permit at any point during your online studies from outside Canada, but you must submit your postgraduate work permit application within 180 days. So the rule about 180 days remains whether you are applying for your postgraduate work permit from inside or from outside Canada. Okay. So to go through the timelines of events as they will normally happen with PGWP applications, so you would first complete your program. You will obtain official notification from SFU that you have completed your studies. So that basically, once your credential completion letter is available, that basically an official notification that you have officially successfully completed your program from SFU and ready to apply for your postgraduate work permit. Submit your work permit application within 180 days of completing your program. And if you are applying from inside Canada, PGWP will be mailed to the address that you will mention on your application. In case you are applying from outside Canada, you will receive a letter of introduction that you can exchange for work permit upon your entry to Canada at the airport. We will now move along to discuss work eligibility during the transition to work permit. The rules for working on and off campus are slightly different in a student's final term of study if they have maintained full-time status during each formal academic term of their program. As we discussed earlier, generally students must be studying full-time in the term they wish to work to be eligible to work on and off campus. While this is true, students may not need a course load to complete the program in their final term of study and thus may be studying part-time in their final term. And IRCC understand that. On-campus work. So if you are studying part-time in your final term of study, you can work on campus without your working hours being restricted, as there is no limit on the hours you can work on campus if you meet all requirements for on-campus work, including having a valid study permit that mention you're authorized to work on campus and you are a full-time student in your program up until your last semester. Off campus. If you are studying part-time in your final term of studies, you can work off campus up to 20 hours per week if you meet all the criteria and you are a full-time program in Canada up until your last semester. Now, it is important to note here that if you're studying part-time in your final term and you were not a full-time in your program in Canada up to your last semester, then you would not be permitted to work on campus or off campus in your final term unless you are enrolled full-time in that term. So if you are eligible to work off campus under your study permit in your final term of studies, then you may continue to work up to 20 hours per week until you receive official notification of program completion from SFU. This is the form of a credential completion letter issued to you via GoSFU. Once you receive official notification of program completion from SFU, you must stop working under your study permit as you no longer meet the requirement to work under your study permit. If you are pursuing your SFU co-op in your final term of study, you must cease working under your co-op work permit once you have fulfilled the co-op requirement for your program. Once official notification of program completion is issued by SFU, you can then apply for your postgraduate work permit. And if you meet the eligibility criteria, which you see listed on this screen, you may begin working full-time. Next slide, please. When you transition to postgraduate work permit, your spouse or common law partner may be eligible to apply for an open work permit. If you are employed in a skilled occupation and if you have a work permit that is valid for at least 6 months. A skilled occupation would be one that falls within the National Occupation Classification categories O, A, or B. You must also physically reside in Canada or plan to physically reside in Canada while working. If your spouse or common law partner would like to apply for this open work permit, they would need to include both evidence of your relationship and evidence of your skilled employment in their work permit application. You and your spouse or partner are welcome to connect with us if you have any question about this option. Given the impact of COVID-19 on international students, IRCC has announced temporary policy changes to PGWP eligibility requirement for students who have been enrolled in PGWP eligible programs already in the progress in March 2020 and students who begin postgraduate work permit program between spring up to summer 2020. So if you were studying a program in March 2020, or you started a program until up to summer 2020, and if you completed your program completely online until August 2022, you will still be eligible for your postgraduate work permit. According to RCC website, students in these groups are not required to complete 50% of their program of study in Canada. Up to 100% of the program can be completed online from their home countries or from outside Canada. Additionally, time spent studying outside of Canada can be counted towards the overall length of post-graduation work permit until August 31st, 2022. Any time spent outside of Canada after this deadline will not be counted towards the length of your postgraduate work permit. This will apply to students who have been enrolled in a program that was in progress in March 2020 or have started a program between spring 2020 and summer 2020 and have valid study permit or have been approved for a valid study permit. If you started your program online from outside Canada before you applied for a study permit, you may still be eligible for postgraduate work permit. Only the time you spent studying online after your application was received will count towards the length of your postgraduate work permit. So for example, in cases where application was submitted before a program start but is refused, and if you submit a subsequent application which is approved, the studies undertaken after the first study permit application was received by IRCC will count towards the length of your program. Leave from the studies. The current global situation continues to create unique challenges for many students. For those reasons, some students have had to take time off from their programs. As we talked about earlier, under the PGWP program, students are required to maintain full-time status during each semester of their studies to remain eligible for postgraduate work permit. IRCC, even though announced some flexibility in case where students were forced to drop to part-time or had to take a term off for reason related to COVID-19 during the spring and summer 2020 terms. However, that flexibility was not extended beyond summer 2020. Given this is our understanding that the expectation is that students continue to remain full-time if they wish to remain eligible for postgraduate work permit. IRCC has also updated the program delivery instruction to indicate that students who have taken a period of leave of absence must include documentation proving that leave was authorized by a school in their PGWP application. We have accordingly updated our guide to include instruction for students when applying for postgraduate work permit. Next is biometrics. So if you are required to give biometrics as part of your application, this means you have not given biometrics as part of application to come to Canada in the last 10 years. Then currently you would be exempt from this requirement to give biometrics if you are applying from inside Canada. This is only a temporary measure. So we do advise that you stay up to date on the changes that could happen for biometrics. For outside Canada graduates, students who graduate from outside of Canada and meet the eligibility requirement of temporary PGWP changes do not need to hold or have held a study permit within 180 days of applying for PGWP. So in order to apply, these graduates must either have a study permit or have received a study permit approval, and they still apply within 180 days of receiving notification of program completion from SFU. I also understand some of you might have question about, can I travel if I submit my postgraduate work permit after in Canada? Would I still be eligible to come back to Canada? So the answer is yes. As long as you have valid visa or ETA, you would be able to come back to Canada. So when you return to Canada, you may enter as a student if your study permit is still valid. Now remember that your study permit automatically expires 90 days, or you may be able to enter as a visitor and you can continue to work without a work permit if you were eligible to do in the first place. A border officer may have some question or ask for a proof that you applied for post-graduation work permit. So when you submit your application, you receive acknowledgement of receipt that the IRCC has received your application. We recommend that you carry the copy of acknowledgement along with your visa when you travel to Canada. So thank you for the session. For those of you who are still with us, we will move along to the question and answer periods. Just another